Hello, hello. Welcome back to Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jerry Jones. My research specialties, as you probably already know by now, are ancient systems of meditation, Buddhist philosophy, the cognitive science of meditation, and philosophy of science. I've been training in meditation for about 20 years and about 21 years now, actually, mostly in the Buddhist tradition, and in the last 6 years also training in Taoist meditation. And now I'm on a mission to try to make meditation accessible to lay people living in the real world, not just people who want to do intensive retreat. Although, as some of you know, I'm also very much in favor of doing intensive retreats. So, welcome to the stream. We've got some regulars here. Looks like we have Sweet and Sour, Oats, Jay. Good to see you. And I'm just going to pull this up on a different platform so I can monitor it a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Nice. The quality is actually not bad today. I'm happy about that. All right, my friends. As you probably already know, the way that this goes is I answer questions for the first 15 minutes or so. Hey, Ty, welcome. Thanks for the super thanks on a couple videos earlier today. I saw that come through. Um, so the first 15, 20 minutes, I answer questions about your personal meditation practice, and then we do some practice together. And then, depending on how things are going, I may answer some more questions afterwards. I may move on with my day. Um, because there's some. Oh, wow, Ty, thank you so much. Uh, because there are some things about to get going with the Lohan course. We're going to be sending out an email blast today for everyone that's on the email list for that course. So if you've already pre-signed up for Lohan, then you'll be getting that email tonight, and it'll have a nice little article that um, Neil wrote. I don't know. I think it said 2018 that I edited today and added my 2 cents into. So it's a little joint article talking about Lohan and this principle of balance. Yes, we have two celestial Buddhas now. They're either going to they're going to have a massive battle to see who is superior, or they're going to save us all. Okay. So yeah, I'll probably after class just go straight into doing a whole lot of nothing. Uh and by nothing I mean sending out emails and so on and so forth. Hey Sasa, welcome. Nicholas, welcome to the stream. Nicholas, have you been with our stream before? I can't remember. There could only be one. Yeah, it's like that Jet Li movie. Oh, my wife said nobody would get it. She said nobody would understand if I made all the tiers the names of Buddhist things. But I'm glad everyone gets it and thinks it's as funny as I do. If someone starts taking it seriously, then we'll have a problem. Okay. Uh, so fun announcements. I've been talking with Neil, and I think sometime between Wednesday and Sunday, we're going to launch the Lohan course. There are about 20 spots remaining in that course if you wanted to get the first 3 months half off. Neil does teach martial arts professionally, so he does have to charge, but uh, uh, we have talked about it quite a bit, and I think the price we've settled on is 39 a month. Fairly confident it'll be 39 or right about there, 39 US dollars. And so half off for those of who are interested in doing that course will be around $19 a month for the first 3 months. So it's about the cost of a meal to do the first 3 months, a meal each month. So The structure for that is going to be that you get one video a week, which will have fresh material and things for you to practice that week or add on to what you already know from previous weeks of study. Also, we're already starting to look at and think about what supplementary materials we might have in terms of stuff to study along with that for people who are interested in going a bit deeper on the theoretical side. And we've already talked quite a bit because he's been teaching for years. He has a huge amount of video material and he already has a huge amount of material, but it's not organized in one place. So we're also deciding as we go where we're going to drip that in. So not only will you get the video a week, there's going to be, I mean, I don't know how many hours. I think he has like 100 hours of video lessons on Lohan stuff he's already recorded in the past. And at some point, we're just going to like seed that in to the other materials you're getting just to make it more rich, just to make it better. Oh yeah, so live sessions. I think I don't know exactly how that's going to work. We're still talking about it, but I think, for a nominal fee, for a nominal extra fee, he'll probably start doing group lessons online as well as part of the community. So those videos for the group lessons, for people that want to attend live, I think it'll be a small nominal fee of some kind, and then those will get parked somewhere in the course materials. At least, probably we'll have to decide where each one is relevant, right? Because you don't want to introduce material that should be later on to an earlier part. So it makes people confused. But um, to whatever the relevant level of the class is, we'll just start adding those to the overall material. So as time goes on, the amount of material you're going to have access to is going to become more and more. You see what I mean? So there's that. And then I think he's also going to be doing private lessons. So there'll be the opportunity, once again, if you want to go deeper than the videos and deeper than the group class, that there'll be an opportunity at some point to potentially sign up to do individual lessons with him. So, it's basically sort of like a typical martial arts studio kind of arrangement, except from a distance. Yeah. Also, really excited about this bit. He and I have already talked a fair amount, and we've decided um, pretty firmly, actually, that we're gonna be doing joint retreats together at some point. So we'll have retreats where we come together, we do Lohan stuff, we do all the energy work stuff that he does, and then we'll start with my techniques for meditation that give you a few skills that his system doesn't teach. And then we'll transition through my material into the Lohan material. So we'll be tag teaming the meditation portion of the retreat. So keep an eye out for that as time goes on. Probably the next, I'd say 6 months to a year, depending on how many people come in. So we'll do, and we've already talked about this too. We're going to have the option for some people to do it remotely. So if you've been involved in the Lohan course or the meditation stuff that I do, you can tune in for the relevant portions. And if you can't afford, whatever the amount of the retreat is, as per the usual, you can just attend from home for free. So we're gonna make that part of it pretty flexible, I think. So we're hoping and planning to deliver a lot of value for the money that's coming in, and hoping over the next, you know, here's the thing. I mean, some of you may find this interesting, may find this compelling. Neil actually holds this lineage, right? He holds this lineage of Lohan, and he wants to pass it on to some people before he's dead, so that it'll live for another generation. So he is actively, independently, and with my help, trying to put it into a form where people can actually go through the whole system, and with enough training through that system and turning up in person to do stuff with him, blah 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 blah, that he can legitimately pass this whole system on to another generation. So if you have some interest, some of you may be martial artists or whatever, in actually going through a whole system and taking on a whole lineage of practice, and again, pretty rare, interesting lineage of Shaolin stuff. That's where this is headed. It's not just like do some courses and have a nice day kind of thing. He genuinely wants to pass on his whole lineage. So that's what we're gearing everything toward, is people that are serious enough that they are actually going to do the stuff that you need to do to gain the skills that the system describes. So that's the way we're building the course. We're not building it like full of fluff, you know? Okay, enough about that for now, I suppose, unless there are questions. Um, where are we at on time? All right, we're about 13 minutes in. For those of you who stumble on this later, I think there's about 200 people or so that end up watching it later. I've put the Lohan links in the description below and in the chat, so easy to find. What else? What else? What else? We have two celestial Buddhas now. I don't know what to do. Don't know what to do. I don't know if they're going to fight or if they're going to merge or if they're going to set up their own pure lands and stop taking teachings now that they're celestial Buddhas. Uh, does anyone have questions from practice over the last week or two? Good time to ask. Like a loud one. Not sure what you mean. Yeah, everyone's going to have to start paying homage. You know, joking aside, dear friends and colleagues, it really is. I really have nothing that I charge for that you can't find for free in exactly the same form somewhere else. So through the things that I basically have a system set up where you're being charged for something like my meditation course, all of that material is available for free on YouTube in exactly the same form with exactly the same resources attached to it. And as some of you know, I'm happy to get on the phone with you for 3 hours if you haven't given me a single cent of any kind at any time to help you make progress in these practices. Period. I'm not here to make money, but I do have to have money to do this, 70, 80 hours a week. So people like Jay and Ty who are donating are making this possible for everyone else, you know? So it's really incredible. It's really incredible. You know, it's really nice that the community is finding value in this. And because there's enough people finding enough value in it to contribute, that I'm able to do this for, you guys don't get to see it all. You get to see the piece that you're involved in. But there are hundreds of people that are benefiting. And I'm talking to a lot of people on the phone. You know, sometimes I spend 9 hours on the phone with people talking to them on video and helping them with their practices. And there's so much benefit. It's already happening. So it's only because you guys think it's valuable that I get to carry on, you know? So again, I owe you my thanks. Seriously. And the community owes you thanks so that I'm able to do this for all the people that can't afford it or for whatever reason don't contribute, you know? And there's lots of good reasons that you can't contribute. And then some people like I won't tell you who you really are, but Sweet and Sour, for example, Neil sent me something that his teacher, Grandmaster Chen, had written in Chinese when he was 70 years old. And I don't know that Neil had ever had it translated. And I sent it to her and she translated it. And now we have this wonderful document from his teacher that maybe no one's ever read since he since he wrote it, you know. It's incredible. And because of that, anyone who's in the Lohan course will now benefit from the fact that we have this document translated into English that they have access to from like a great master of this system. It's just so incredible. Okay, Altes asks, what have we been working on? I've been doing a lot of standing practice because quite a few people that are joining regularly already have seated practice. And so we've been doing standing. Also, I'm doing a lot of sitting at the moment because one of my teachers has me working on something in seated practice. And so my body is totally jacked up from sitting for so long every day. And so I need to do standing or things are going to start breaking. This is another reason we're doing more standing. Uh, okay. Wonderful. Well, dear friends, colleagues, since we have no new questions coming in, I think we'll jump into it. Ah, Ty, you're much too generous. Very, very generous. Hans, welcome, welcome. It is evening my time. I'll swivel my camera a bit so you can see. In Scotland, even though it's 9 o'clock, I mean it's 7 minutes to 9 o'clock, the sun is still completely bright. We have a very weird, it's almost like Alaska, where we have times of year where the sun is up almost all the time, not quite all the time, but almost all the time, and then we have times of year where it's dark just a huge amount of the time. Okay, all right, friends, let's do some practice, huh? I think, Nicholas, are you still here? If you're still here, I want to make sure that I give you enough. Oh, and NAW 89, are you still here? Are you going to do some practice with us, or are you just passing through? If you guys are going to do some practice, I'll spend a little more time talking about how to stand properly, because standing is quite difficult if you stand still and don't know how to stand properly. And if it's just my regulars, then we'll jump into it. But if there's new people, I want to make sure that I don't leave you in a lurch. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing anything come through, so I'm going to assume it's mostly the folks here that are know what they're doing, or who are like making breakfast or whatever without actually doing anything. They're just listening, as people do. All right, come to a standing position. Oh, I'm going to need to raise that up. Okay, a bit new to meditation. Then what I'll do, Hans, is I'll give you enough instructions so that when you're seated, you can do the practice we're doing today seated instead of standing. Okay. So, in terms of posture, one of the things that really helps is just to go through it in rapid form because we've been through it a lot in the last couple of days. If you want your leg, imagine this is my leg, right? If you want your leg to be more comfortable, not in the beginning, but in the long term for standing, you want to get stretched. You want this to stretch a little bit on the foot, and you want this to stretch a little bit on the calf, and you want this to stretch a little bit basically on the bicep, which will be my thigh, right? So if my foot is a little stretched and my calf is a little stretched and my thigh is a little stretched, then my body weight is resting on that elasticity instead of just resting on the muscles. So part of the reason we stand the way that we do is that when you bend the knees and you get the weight to about right here, right behind the ball of the foot, then you end up with a stretch here, a stretch here, and a stretch here, right? And that stretch ends up being what you stand on instead of standing on just the strength of your muscles or instead of just standing on your bones. So if you go to your heels, you can feel. If you lock your knees out, you can feel that you're basically resting on the bones. The knees go like this, and you're resting on that heel bone, and it's coming up the bones to the hip. If you go all the way to your toes, you'll feel that all of a sudden you engage all the muscles. So the calves get tight, the thighs get tight, and now all the weight is on the muscular system of the legs. You feel that? On the other hand, there's a third option, which is you bend the knees a little bit so that the weight ends up just behind the balls of the feet, and you'll feel that you're not quite on the bones and you're not quite tightening all the muscles, and stuff is starting to elongate a little bit and stretch out. And there's a bounciness to the legs. So it's that stretchiness or elasticity ultimately that you're trying to cultivate and stand on, because that one will make you healthier as you get older and will allow you to stand longer. The only downside is until your body gets used to it, it'll feel like your feet are on fire. But that goes away after some time. Okay, so stand with the feet facing forward, or if you're seated, just continue to be seated. Now, if you look at my body, the torso, a lot of people stand kind of like this. So they're leaning back. I'm exaggerating, but they lean back to about here because they stick their belly out or whatever. So what you want to do is you take your perineum, right, which right now is pointed this way, and you point it down while you're sitting like this. And when you point your perineum down, the weight ends up right between the feet and therefore on the balls, right behind the balls of the 2 feet. So from here, then all you have to do is just take the head, don't pull it back, but just lower the chin like this. And then from here, if you imagine someone sort of grabbing you by the hair and holding the head there, if you let the weight sink a little bit away from the head, then you'll feel that the spine stretches just a little bit. You don't want to overdo it. Very subtle stretch of the spine. And that will connect the stretch in the legs to the stretch in the spine. And then all you need to do is find the stretch in the arm, the stretchiness of the arm. To do that, the easiest thing to do is you relax the arms, right? And then you just barely open the hands. Just barely open the hands. You're not going like this. You're just putting a little life in them. And you'll feel that just by opening the hands that the whole arm becomes kind of stretchy. It's not like you're going like this or something, right? They're relaxed, but when you open the palms and put a little bit of intent through the arm, they have that same stretchy feeling as the legs and the spine. So this is what you're standing on, so to speak, when you stand. And this has a lot of health benefits, comes over from the Chinese medical system. It'll allow you to stand for a long time. Once you get good at it, you can stand this way with relative ease for about an hour. So last detail is, here's the side of my leg. Here's the front of my leg. This hand, if I relax it, see how it ends up at about the 45? So you stretch the hand open just slightly and then touch your middle finger to the thigh. The reason for this is if you're standing, especially if you close your eyes, you'll start doing this kind of thing. The body will end up all cockeyed. So to avoid that, you touch the thighs, and then you'll start to notice if you get a little weird that because your hand is staying stationary, it gives you more feedback on what the rest of the body is doing. So now that you've assumed the posture, if you're seated, just get into a comfortable position where the spine is basically straight, relatively straight. That's all you need to do for this stage of practice. And the first thing we'll do is intensive breath. So intensive breath meditation comes through my teacher who was trained in Zen, primarily Okinawan Zen through the martial tradition. But he adapted this after studying the Tibetan tradition in some detail. So the Tibetans inherited the Indo Tibetan canon, which includes this teaching about what to do at the beginning stages of meditation. And the type of attention you need, they say in the great texts, is forceful conveying, that you bring a great deal of force to meet the great force of your distractions. And this is a very skillful technique, whether you're an advanced practitioner or a beginner, because for beginners, it allows you to get all of your attention pooled in one place. And for people who are a little further along, if you have a good day or a bad day, allows you to pull your attention in when the mind is not behaving. Okay, so here we go. So, first, just place your attention on the sensations of breathing, either in the nostril or somewhere near the nostril, wherever you feel the most sensations of breathing around the nostrils. Okay, usually that's inside one of the nostrils. When you find a patch of skin where there's a lot of sensations, place your mind there with great intensity, trying to bring the entire bandwidth of your awareness into that tiny patch of skin so that everything else goes away to the best of your ability, or at least becomes sort of pixelated gray, right? It's not getting very much bandwidth. All right. So when I say begin, bring the full force of your awareness to that patch of skin. Ready? Oh, sorry. And you'll count the breath from 1 to 7, 7 to 0. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, begin. Okay. Place the attention in the toes of both feet, the balls of both feet, the arch and top of the foot on both feet, the heel of both feet, the ankles of both feet, your lower calves, upper calves, knees, lower thighs, upper thighs, hips, front of the pelvis, and the back of the pelvis, tailbone, perineum, sexual organ, and come to rest at the tip of the organ or the most sensitive point. Line back to the tailbone, up the sacrum, to the back of the waist. So that's the lower third of your trunk. And just include now the front of the waist so that you have that whole lower third of the trunk. Now the middle third of the trunk, what I call the diaphragm belt. And the upper third of the trunk, what I sometimes call the chest belt. For those of you who are standing, just to torture you a little bit further, brief theoretical consideration. Inside your pelvis, you have some of your reproductive some of your reproductive organs. You have the bladder, etc., etc. In the lower part of the abdomen, you have small intestine, large intestine, kidneys. In the middle part of the abdomen, you have the spleen, stomach, liver. And then in the upper part of the chest, you have lungs and heart. So part of the reason that I break the body up in the way that I do is that you have cavities inside the body that are holding different organs. So eventually, if you want to be able to feel where the organs are, it can be helpful to have done a little bit of work dividing the body up in a somewhat natural way. Okay, now bring the attention to the top of the left shoulder, front, left, back, armpit, bicep region, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, first knuckles, second knuckles, third knuckles, fingertips, top of the right shoulder, front, right side, back, armpit, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm, and back of your hand. First knuckles, second knuckles, third knuckles, fingertips, lower third of your neck, middle third of your neck, and the upper third of your neck. The joint between the neck and the skull, and now just do the whole skull. Bring your awareness to the top of your scalp, and there may be a part on the top of your scalp that feels a little more sensations, tingling, movement, warmth, cold, something. If so, place your attention there. If not, just bring the attention to the back third of the scalp in the middle. From there, stretch your awareness down to include both of your hands so that now you're aware of the top of the skull and both hands. And stretch the awareness down again, top of the skull to both feet. So now you're aware of both hands, both feet, and the top of your skull. So this is called 5 points meditation, and it's a precursor to being able to meditate on the entire body as one object. So do your very best to just keep your awareness on the 5 points, both hands, both feet, and the top of your head. All right. Now relax your awareness for a moment. Don't shake out your legs. Don't do anything. Stay where you are. Bring your awareness to everything that's facing the front. And these aren't precise, but just everything tactile, physical that you can feel facing forward. Bring your awareness to that. Let that go. Everything facing behind. Let that go. Everything facing to the left. Let that go. Everything facing to the right. Let that go. Everything facing upwards. Let that go. Everything facing downwards. We're going to combine directions now. First, become aware of everything facing to the front and the back. Let that go. Everything facing to the left and the right. Let that go. Everything facing up and down. Okay. Now we're going to combine again. So let that go. If you can only do 4 directions, that's fine. Leave out up and down. If you can do all 6, even better. But let's start with the first 2. So bring the awareness to the front and the back. And without letting that go, add on the left and the right. Without letting that go, add on up and down. Now, some of you have been at this with me for a while. You have to work with yourself now. If all you can do is maintain the 5 points, then transition to walking and do the 5 points. If you can maintain 4 directions while walking, maintain 4 directions. If you can maintain all 6, maintain all 6 directions while walking. But don't fool yourself. Don't try to do more because you want to be important or because whatever. Only do what you can legitimately do. If you can only get the 5 directions, if you can only get the 5 points working, fine. If you can only get 4 directions working, fine. Just scale it back to whatever you can actually do. Okay? Likewise, as in the past, when you start to walk, if you want to maintain all 6 directions, you should probably be walking about this fast. Because I guarantee you, at this stage of practice, there's no way you're going to be able to maintain all 6 of those directions with any integrity if you're going very much faster than this. So move at whatever pace you can actually maintain the directions. Or if you can't do the directions at all, do the 5 points. And if you're seated, then just carry on maintaining 5 points or 4 directions or 6 directions as best you can and from a seated position. Okay, begin. One of the really incredible things about Mahamudra style practice is that it gives you access to the things that actually make you up as a being. In terms of your experience of everything, absolutely everything, it only comes through six things: your tactile awareness, your visual awareness, your hearing awareness, your smell awareness, your taste awareness, and your mental sense, what's called the mental sense consciousness in Buddhist philosophy, and Buddhist psychology. Obviously, with the body is tactile sensations and a number of other things that are basically you feel with the body. With the ear, you hear sounds. With the nose, you smell smells. With the tongue, you taste the various tastes. With the mind, with the mind, it has memory, mental image. You can hear a sound, right, with your mind. Where, like, if you say one, as we do with Foundation One, right? If you say the number one loudly in your mind can behold or be aware of that sound. So mentally generated stuff is unique to the mind. Your ears don't hear that sound. If you visualize the number one, your your eyes don't see that one, your mind sees the number one. So your mind has unique objects in the same way that vision sees colors and shapes and the ear hears sounds. So, since your mind has unique objects that it's aware of, in the same way that your other senses have objects they're aware of, this is called the sixth sense in Buddhism, right? It's actually not a mystical concept. It's that you literally have six different senses and they're able to be aware of different things. So when you do Mahamudra style practice, the great texts from these, the Mahasiddhas who lived these incredible lives in India, you can read about the Indian Mahasiddhas and the very interesting storied lives they lived and the things they did. There are wonderful biographies of the Indian Mahasiddhas, but one of them, Tilopa, um, taught this particular teaching, Mahamudra, which is what I call Foundation 4. And he said, the Panchen Lama, who's now a Tibetan Lama, commenting on this much later, says, this wondrous technique is suitable for both beginners and advanced practitioners. How incredible that you could use such a sophisticated technique like becoming aware of the entire body using six directions, for example, is part of Mahamudra practice. That this is something that a beginner can start learning how to do, and it will take them further down the path of training in concentration and meditation. And an advanced practitioner who can actually become fully aware of the body can use that for advanced practices of meditation, right? It's something that can be a path taking you virtually from the beginning, let's say, of the path of meditation to the end. And in particular, when you start talking about mind being aware of mental consciousness, sorry, when you start talking about the mind, here are five senses, right? And they all have a relationship with the central mind. But when you gain some control of the five external senses, it's much easier to pull them inside so that all of that bandwidth that's being used by the five external senses gets pulled in and is now aware of the central mind. Once you're able to do this with some degree, let's say you can get 60-70% of the bandwidth just looking at mental content, then you'll start to have this experience where the mind isn't just being pulled around, it can be aware of mental content without getting involved. So all of those self-help videos and blah 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 where they're saying just sit there and be aware of your mind and the contents of your mind. Let thoughts be like clouds. Let thoughts be like waves on the surface of the ocean. All this stuff you hear from everywhere that nobody can actually do. With this practice you can learn how to actually do it. Because normally what people do is they sit there and to turn the mind sideways, right? Their mind runs to the body, and their mind runs to vision, and then they hear something, and then the mind's running to what they ate for lunch, and then they smell their own, whatever got on their beard, and so their mind is running around to the five external senses. And then in terms of the central mind, the content of that mind is pulling the mind around like this. But because you didn't do any of it on purpose, you think you're doing non-doing meditation. You think you're doing just sitting meditation, but actually you're just running around like crazy from the five senses to the five senses, and you're running around like crazy chasing mental content, and you don't know because you don't have enough awareness to know the difference. With this practice, you do it with something easier. You tame the five external senses and learn how to not have your mind run around in the five external senses. What does that mean? You did a little bit of it today. If you were able to open even four directions, you had the experience that your mind can be aware of a huge part of the tactile field, right, of the body without having to run around inside that field doing stuff. It's just aware of the field, right? Okay. If you can understand that, at least in theory, from doing what we did today, you can understand, wow, if I get good at this, then I can stop this process of my mind chasing so much stuff in the tactile field, which means that I have some chance of pulling that part of the awareness in, at least part of it in, so that so much of it isn't getting dragged out. I can pull part of it in to be aware of the mind instead of all this tactile stuff. And then if you can do the same with the other four, now you can pull it in to look at mind, and you'll have enough bandwidth looking at the content of mind to notice when you're doing this with mental content and when you're doing this, so that the mind is just watching and stuff's happening. Now, finally, it's like passing clouds in the mind. You see? So then what happens next? This content starts to disappear for periods of time. And you start to notice, oh, there's little thoughts trying to come, but they don't arrive. And then sometimes they arrive and then they go away, right? So then they're like passing clouds. They're like waves coming up and down in the mind, but the mind is remaining stable. Can you see it? And then at some point, the mind is not alone, but is fairly alone. And the mind becomes aware of what the mind is because the mind knows stuff. That's what it does. If any of you have seen Game of Thrones, there's that funny scene where they're asking the short guy, what's his name? Oh, Lannister, one of the Lannisters. The I can't remember his name. In any case, they're asking him like, what does he do? And he says, I drink and I know things. So your central mind, it generates experiences and it knows those experiences. That's its whole business. That's what it does for a living. It generates experiences and it's aware of experiences. So when the content gets out of the way so that the mind isn't pulled in and observing the content, what is there left to know? Only its own properties. So then your mind starts to become aware of its own properties when objects aren't distracting it from being aware of its own properties. Now, finally, we're at the point where you can analyze what is this mind? What is this mind that is appearing in meditation? What is this fundamental thing that makes me up? Because this is the piece that's really sticky. Tyrion, there it is, Tyrion Lannister. So this is the part that's really sticky. If you train in meditation for a while, it becomes pretty obvious to you that you're not your body. Yeah, it becomes pretty. And even if you've had, I was talking to someone today. I won't put you on blast because I don't share people's personal stuff unless they tell me. But it's helpful for other people to hear this, even if you don't know who it is. But somebody told me today that they've had these like incredible experiences that in the past convinced them to be Christian, right? And you have these experiences where, as part of that experience, you gain some sense that you're not just your body and there's more stuff going on in the universe, let's say. Okay. So, if you want to gain a stable awareness of whatever this thing is that moves from lifetime to lifetime, This is a pathway to be able to taste it directly and look at it and see what it's actually like for the first time in your life. So now you can probably understand why the great meditators say, like the Panchen Lama, when he's commenting on the Mahamudra tradition from the great Indian Mahasiddhas, the great yogis of the Buddhist Indian tradition, is saying you can do this, you can start doing this very early on. This is great for beginners, but it's a pathway that takes you all the way over here to the most advanced types of practice you can do in the sutric tradition, where you're looking at all of the components that make up your being to see how they exist, right? This is the bread and butter, you could say, of real Buddhist practice. So it's suitable for beginners and suitable for advanced practitioners. This is why I love this technique, among many other reasons. Ah, David, welcome. Right. So, having come this far in talking about all this, um, part of the reason I like this technique a lot also is that if you can gain the ability to be aware of an entire sensory field, this is a type of concentration you can take off your cushion, like we did today, where you're able to walk with that field completely open. And eventually when you do Mahamudra sort of full on, let's say, sort of properly, you open all five external gates at the same time so that your experience of the world becomes single pointed concentration on all five senses fully open all the time. So then you're training in meditation all the time. You're not training in meditation just when you're sitting somewhere or just when same thing when you open the mental gate and you're becoming aware of mental content without getting involved, the mind gets to stay still while there's content appearing in the mind. So in the Mahamudra tradition, this is called moving minds and still minds mixed together. So you can sit with the mind still while content is appearing. What does that mean? That means that you can do your conceptual work of your real life, your job, the complex stuff you have to think through while keeping the mind still. So you can train in concentration even while content is appearing in the mind and is changing. So incredible technique if you want to train in this stuff in real life, because you can turn real life into serious practice. You need to gain enough experience that you can do this, of course, but you can see the potential of the technique. It's very long lasting. And if you have this kind of technique as a foundation, now think about your lineage. You go into retreat and you do Goenka practice, or you do your tantric practice, or you do your Theravadan Thai forest practice, et cetera, right? And you gain some new capability in meditation. Let's say that now you're sort of here instead of here. Now you have these techniques to maintain as much of this capability that you've gained in real life, because real life is going to try to stir up your mind. And you need techniques that stop the mind from getting stirred up when you get back into the world. This is it, right? So you can take more out of your lineage, more out of your retreats, and back into real life if you have a set of tools in your hand that allow you to do that. Ah, sugar free, sugar free. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I was talking with someone today about getting into the medical field and caring for people in difficult circumstances. Is really, really excellent for your practice. And I think it's so good for you as a human being. If you don't get burned out, if you don't get burned out by the work, because some people become a bit sort of hardened by the work. But if you're able to maintain your genuine warm heart, your genuine concern, it's incredibly beneficial to work in end of life care and pastoral care, as they have in hospitals and medical care, because you get to encounter these. When the Buddha left home from luxury, he went out and he saw someone sick, and then he saw someone of old age, and then he saw someone who had passed away. He saw someone deceased, right? Three things he saw: old age, sickness, and death. And encountering these things through your work, encountering these things regularly, uh, it changes you for the better. If you're mature, if your mind is sort of prone to not good things, then sometimes it's not good. But if your mind is prepared, it's a very, very good thing to have that as part of your regular experience. For example, just to let you guys know, you can use your real life to enhance your practices. So, for example, um, if you belong to social clubs in your area, as a way to get together with people and be entertained. If you can find social clubs and social activities where you meet people who are much older than you, then this again, it has a feedback on your practice in terms of things like impermanence and remaining aware that time is limited. My body will wear out. I don't have forever to practice, etc. It gives you so much more visceral, direct experience to work with instead of just sitting there reading a book and it says, you're going to die one day, right? You're going to get sick one day, right? You're going to get old one day. Like it's just words on a page. But if once a week or once a month you meet with a lot of people who are on the edge of life or who are quite old or whatever, as this is another great benefit of spending time with family. If your family is extended and there are people of all ages and you get together regularly, it just reminds you what's important. And this is really important for your practice if you want to be a serious practitioner, you know? Okay. All right. I think I'll leave it there since no new questions are coming in. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Very much a pleasure to have you, and uh, it's really lovely. It's a good combination of comments and questions. Even though I can't see you, I can feel the vibes. I can feel that things are happening. Things are happening. Caring positions have a danger of becoming too emotive, investing yourself beyond what's healthy. Yeah, 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 yeah. This is one of the interesting things, David, about loving kindness, for example. Loving kindness has this sort of it has a combination of interesting qualities that you wouldn't expect to come together. But one of the foundations of loving kindness is renunciation in Buddhism. You have to have renunciation first and equanimity of a certain kind, right? There are different kinds of equanimity that equanimity can mean like four or five different things. But you have this type of equanimity that equalizes the categories of beings. And then you have this renunciation that isn't trying to get something out of it for you. Because the as you said, this aspect where it has to turn out well so that I can be well fucks you up. That screws you up. So if you can get that part out of the thing, and the only thing is, I want it to turn out well for others. But at the end of the day, it's like we did a little movie screening the other night of Redbeard. It's this great film by Akira Kurosawa, and there's this scene in that movie where there's this one clerk for a wealthy merchant, and he goes, isn't it true that doctors really don't have any control about how it turns out with patients? That whether they live or die is actually not in the doctor's hands. And he goes through like a series of these arguments, and Redbeard, who's this great sort of Buddhist bodhisattva and medical practitioner, he's like, "Yep, all that's true." And he goes, "Well, then doesn't it kind of not matter which doctor they see if it's not in the doctor's hands?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's also true." you know, so the loving kindness it drives you with utter sheer force and intensity to make sure that everything that can be done has been done without any need on your side for it to turn out well for your sake. You see? So it's like incredibly functional, incredibly powerful to make sure that things turn out well as best they could, but it removes this portion that's causing you harm and burnout over time. It's incredibly powerful. Like if you really understand all the moving parts of this thing that it's called metta in Buddhism. It's one of the rarest and most difficult states of mind to generate in the world. Most of what's called metta is actually goodwill practice. It's just sort of, I hope things go well for other people. I hope others don't have bad stuff happen to them. That's not actually metta. That it could help you generate metta one day, but it's not metta. So how do you know when to draw the line? There's no line. There's no line. Loving kindness should be so powerful that it completely fills up your body and mind as if you were outraged or as if you were so filled with lust you're just jumping out of your skin. It should be as powerful as the most negative emotions you have until it's completely overwhelming. No limit. Do you know what this is called in Buddhist psychology? It's called the it's called one of the limitless minds, right? Metta, limitless. Compassion, limitless, infinite. This is a quality you can develop without any limit, for what it's worth. Yeah, trigger free. You do. You have to put on your oxygen mask first. And in Buddhist psychology, your oxygen mask is renunciation. Yeah, in terms of individual situations, it's difficult because the answer for helping others isn't always giving them what they want in the short term, right? Yeah, immeasurable, infinite, immeasurable. That's right, Brandon. That's the word I was searching for. I was like, infinite. It's it's one of the immeasurables. It's a quality you can develop without. Oh, I don't have time to unpack renunciation today, but um, let's see. Did I miss a question? I feel like I've missed a question. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Big resentment issues with family. Yeah, yeah. You know, again, life is complicated and developing. Here's the thing that confuses people. That, but it's actually not hard to understand. It's actually fairly easy to understand, right? Think about it with kids just for a second, because that makes it a little bit more sort of down to earth and kind of playful and easy to get. You love your kids, right? You love your kids. You do basically anything for them. But if they're misbehaving in such a way that it's going to take them way off track, aren't you willing to hurt them basically in any way that's legal to make sure that they get back on track? If you had to send them to a school where they would never see their friends again, but you knew that because of this, they were not going to go to prison, they were not going to kill somebody when they got older, they were going to finally have good character, etc., wouldn't you hurt them in any temporary way that you could to make sure that they got happiness in the long term? Right? And I don't mean like corporal punishment. I mean that there's stuff that you would do that they don't like and don't want and will resent you for maybe for years so that it turns out better for them. That's love. And even with kids, I think people already get this. They're like, I already get my kid's going to hate me for this. I'm not doing it because I want to get something for me. I'm doing it because I want my kid to have a good life when they get older. right? And if it turns out they don't like me because I did this, but then they have a fantastic life, all, I don't like that, but I'm willing to accept it for my kids' sake. You see what I mean? So the way that we treat people because of loving kindness, you can, by way of analogy, you can understand. You don't treat your enemy who's trying to harm you the same way you treat your wife or your kid or your husband or your mother or your father. You don't treat them the same way as a stranger. But when you have loving kindness, all of them are equal in terms of this intense desire you have for it to turn out well for them. Does that make sense? And then in terms of renunciation, to unpack it a bit, it's a bit like the thing with the kid where, it's not about me. It's not about what I get out of this. It's not about me feeling something nice in this situation. It's about my kid having a future that's good for them, period. And if that means that I have to make them hate me so that they have a better future, so be it. You know, maybe they never see all of their friends who are doing drugs ever again, and I send them to a military school. Like they're going to hate me for this, but maybe because of this, it'll turn out okay for them. And I can tell based on what they're doing now, it wasn't going to turn out okay for them. They were going to end up in prison. They were going to end up hurting somebody. They were going to end up in a car crash and dying. You see what I mean? So loving kindness isn't involved with you getting something in this life for you. It's based on it going well in a legitimate, mature sense for someone else. And yeah, so to unpack renunciation just a touch, it's like this. Basically, it's reaching beyond your interests for this lifetime. You could boil it down a bit like this. It reaches a bit further than that, but that's a good start. There's a wonderful saying in the hotel business, in the luxury hotel business. It's a mental attitude they tell people that your staff needs to have if you want to do anything that's sort of really high level in terms of hospitality. It's the attitude of it's not about you. It's not about you. And this is like one of those quintessential teachings, actually. It's like a perfect bodhisattva teaching. But because I used to be in hospitality, I found this and went, oh my, there it is. It's not about you. Loving kindness, it's not about you. The reason that you don't get affected if it doesn't turn out well is because it wasn't about you. None of it was about you. Do you understand? It's about them. And you're willing to do whatever it takes for that kid of yours to have a good life. And if it means they hate your guts and never want to talk to you again, but now they're going to have a nice life, they're going to have ethics, they're going to be able to get jobs, they're going to have a life that's much more stable. They're not going to end up in a car crash or dead or killing somebody or selling drugs the rest of their life because you did the hard thing. That's what you're going to do because it's not about you, it's about them. So, this is sort of the flavor of actual love, even in a conventional sense. But when you cultivate metta, you gain that quality through systematic effort, systematic training. You have that quality towards everybody. Doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter what their relationship is with you. That's just how you feel naturally when you see them. You go, whatever it takes for this one. Okay. And just to tie a little bit of science into this, there was a really, I talk about Minger Rinpoche sometimes because he's been so generous with his brain. They've measured Minger Rinpoche's brain to do all sorts of stuff. And in the great texts on loving kindness and compassion and so forth, it says sometimes, and this made me really uncomfortable the first time I read it because I went, come on, really? But in some of the texts, it says that your compassion and your love for every sentient beings becomes so powerful that it's greater than the love that a mother has for her only child. Think about this for a second. Her only, like a very, very good mother, her only precious child, right? And I thought, that's a bold claim, you know? Can you really do that in regards to every single being down to the fleas and the, you know? And then they did brain scans of Minga Rinpoche. They said, "Can you generate compassion for us?" And he generated compassion. And when they study things like love and compassion and so forth in neurology, they have it on an empathy scale. It's called an empathy scale. And the brain areas associated with empathy, once again, they lit up so intensely. It's like a different bell curve for how intensely Minga Rinpoche feels loving feelings towards all beings is so much more powerful than a normal person's. It's like a different bell curve from the one we normally see in human beings. I've talked about this before. It it is at least according to cognitive science several orders of magnitude above what a mother feels for her only child. And this is what he feels for all beings, right? Because he trained to make it more powerful, more intense, more general. And the great texts say, and the great beings say, they started where we started. So we can all do this. We can all have this type of incredible mind. I can tell you from the small experience I have in this area, it's very enjoyable. Loving kindness is a very enjoyable frame of mind. And compassion is a very enjoyable frame of mind. So not only does it create like unbelievably good karma, the Buddha said he meditated on loving kindness for 7 years, and then he was like, for hundreds of lifetimes, he was the highest types of gods, and then the middling types of gods, and then basically presidents and kings that ran entire star systems, and and then lesser leaders in communities and blah blah blah. So not only does it create amongst the best types of karma and merit there is, it also pushes you further down the Buddhist path. It also feels absolutely incredible in this lifetime when you do it. There's really no downside to this to this to this mind, to this, minds like this. Okay, yes, so much more could be said. One of my teachers used to say the Dharma is like sugar candy, like those sugar candies. It's just a big chunk of sugar. They grow it in a water bath or what have you. And so it's just a big, but he said, so wherever you put your tongue, it tastes sweet. This is the problem. You can talk for hours about any little part, and it's all sweet. All right. I really should go though, my friends. A bit of work to do tonight and still some practice of my own to do. Thank you so much for being here. And we shall continue this another day very soon. Should be here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel at around 8:30 p.m. London time. Thank you so much for coming. Hope to see you again soon. Try not to die before I